I'm Indy Neidells, and this is the first of our Patreon Sabaton history live streams. Today, I have two of the gentlemen with me. I have Joakim and I have Per with me. Now, so everybody doesn't all talk at once. I'll ask you guys to say hi one at a time and maybe say a little bit about where you are and what you've been doing in these dark days. Joakim, what's going on?
Hello. It's all good. I've been building my studio here in Norway where I live, and pretty much taking it easy and figuring out what to do during these times is going to be songwriting for me. So
that's great. Wow, cool. For the 90s R&B album.
For the 90s R&B album. Absolutely.
All right, finally. And Per, how about you? How are you doing and where are you?
I'm fine. I am corona-free. I had my test taken the other day, and
all right.
But I'm in Moscow, so I've been here since the end of our tour. I am working on a couple of different projects from here that might be interesting for fans to know in the future. So I'm almost done here, and if flights allow me in a couple of days, I'm gonna start traveling back from Russia after a couple of months spent here in quarantine. So we all had a different little experience of that.
Mine was sick. Mine was
sorry to hear that.
Corona. It's funny, like being on the other side and going, I was already pretty isolated in general because I'm with a risk group because I have a reduced lung capacity. So I wasn't doing anything. And then having the disease and coming the other side, I'm like, man, this really sucks. I mean, it's worse than the flu, is worse than pneumonia. I've had those. This is way worse. But I'm glad that you guys are still healthy and stuff. And I hope that everybody watching us out there is actually as well, because this is something you don't want to get. I have a question for you, Joakim. Can you tell us what your setup there is, those keyboards and stuff, what you've actually got?
I'm glad you asked.
Okay.
Let's see here. We got a Nord Grand.
I love Nord.
Lovely piano. Yes. Yeah. Lovely Swedish stuff. And Moog Matriarch. I love Moogs too.
Okay. Yeah.
And this is a Behringer, actually. It's basically a copy of a Mini Moog. And, the Roland V-Synth GT. It's my little semi-modular part here. And then, everything is basically connected. So I can, just press record wherever I'm writing songs. I got some guitars hanging over there as well. Everything is in arm's reach to speed up the process, so to speak.
So this you haven't yet. So you just built it together and you haven't yet started recording, right? Or
oh no. This is actually the first time I'm doing some actual work here.
Okay, cool. All right.
I calibrated the speakers an hour ago.
Yeah. Now, Per, have you been writing stuff you're in Moscow? Yeah. Have you been writing stuff there, or have you just been taking it easy? Because I know we've been working on Sabaton history stuff, you and I.
Yeah, we have been filming a couple of things, and no, I haven't been writing any material for Sabaton, of course, and that's gonna take a little while until we get on that part. No, but there is a lot of other things to take care of. I mean, obviously, we had a lot of canceled shows that we had to take care of, find new plans for it, find new purposes for it. And this has taken a lot of time from our side as well. And there are a lot of other projects that Sabaton is doing, not outside of, so to say, that we are releasing albums and go on tour, which is what most fans see most of the time. But there's a lot of things happening also behind the scenes that most fans don't often see. But also it's very required behind doing a heavy metal band in this world.
Well, can I ask a question about just the being in Russia there for the last couple of months? How much of a lockdown are you guys on compared to like Joakim in Norway? Like,
I think Russia was pretty. I mean, Moscow, where I am, is quite heavy lockdown. So in these terms, because I am only allowed to walk to the supermarket and back, basically. As of from Monday, they're gonna open more. I'm gonna be allowed to move before 9 o'clock in the morning. I'm allowed to go outside on 3 days a week. I think I will be allowed to walk outside. So that's gonna be something an unusual experience.
Yeah,
I'm gonna try to head down to Moscow city center, because it's absolutely deserted, and it's quite unique to see such a place where there's usually thousands of tourists, and to go down there and see that it's pretty empty.
Do they have a mask requirement there?
Yeah, mask and gloves are required for any kind of thing outside of your home. Okay. So I don't know. They suggest that we're gonna go and start doing exercise outdoors, like running and stuff. I don't know if it's nice to run in a mask and gloves and stuff.
And gloves, yeah.
Well, that's what they allow people to do now. So
one way to find out. No, it's, since I had been alone for basically 2 months, because I lived alone, and when I was sick, nobody could come in and I couldn't go out. The first day that I was no longer contagious and could go outside, that was the weirdest thing. It was so loud. You met the outside world when you haven't been in the outside world, and there wasn't any people around. It was so loud anyway. So, should we start taking some questions? Yep. Okay, well, guys, we're gonna take a couple of questions from you lovely people out there.
Cool.
Give me just a sec. I'm waiting for the question to come up here. Okay. Tim Pullman asks, does anyone in Sabaton history collect any war memorabilia or have any military vehicles as a hobby? If so, what is it? And why do you collect or get that particular thing? Either you guys want to take this?
Well, I don't think any of us really collects war memorabilia in that sense personally, but as a unit, as a band, I guess we are collectors of gifts we've been given. Everything from heavy water from the Rjukan factory and heavy water sabotage in Norway that we sing about in Saboteurs. We got sand from the beaches of Normandy and so on and so forth. So yeah, there's a whole bunch of that actually. Maybe we should do a special Sabaton history episode of that one day.
Yeah, we have a lot of stuff. Yeah, indeed, and books, lots of books from all around the world. We have a small library at the moment, and but yeah, I don't think anybody of us is collecting any memorabilia like that.
But where do you keep most of this stuff? I guess the books you could probably have at home, but like the stuff that you get, is it in your house or is it in like Falun in your compound or?
So now I think most of them are in the headquarters in Falun.
Yeah.
Now they asked specifically about vehicles.
We have 2 tanks.
2 tanks. Okay, who's got them and what are they and why and how?
One is Audi and the other one is Walter, and they are stored in our warehouse and used on stage. So these 2, and they are obviously not completely functional war military vehicles, but they look damn badass. Yeah, and they are way more usable on tour. So, but no, unfortunately, I have no military vehicles at all.
So nobody's given you like any submarines or like or like a MiG or something. No Air Force or Navy yet.
Nope. I mean, these things and these vehicles are awesome and they're really cool. And we've been, lucky enough to be inside of them, sometimes drive these things, when we're on tour and we get invited to, well, it could be a museum, it could be a video shoot even, And one thing I've noticed is they're super uncomfortable, all of them.
Yeah.
Heavy on gas, so from a practical perspective, yeah, they're cool, but that's about it.
Okay, well, this leads to another question. This is from Tatiana Zavatskaya. What are the most unusual gifts you have received from fans? Perry, you want to take this one first then?
Oh, wow. Okay, so there has been a lot of unusual gifts from fans for sure. And among some of them, I would say are more extremely emotional. There has been people who come to tell a story to us about maybe their fathers or grandfathers or good friends who have some kind of served in the military, and they give us a token of that. For example, this could be something very emotional. And there was also from a guy who later became a very good friend of all of us in the band, actually an American who came to one of the shows. He gave me like a bracelet and said, "This is I carried this as I was serving, and carry that for the rest of the tour. And I see you because it brought me luck. It kept me alive for my tour. It will bring you luck for your tour. And when I see you back here in America at the end of the tour, you better carry this because I need it back." So he gave me this as a token of good luck and good health, so to say. So there are those kind of absolutely like emotional gifts. And there are those who are a little bit of a more funny or crazy or wild things. There has been, for example, guys giving away their girls or girls giving away their guys to us.
Okay.
And I think this belongs to the more extreme that we can see.
Yeah.
And I think, Joakim, I'm missing something quite obvious here, maybe.
Oh yeah, well, some gifts we got that are, maybe not from fans per se, but from people connected to songs that we sing about, like meeting Audie Murphy's son,
Right.
getting a movie poster from the, these old school, movie posters from the movie To Hell and Back, meeting, was it?
What about the sword from the Archbishop in 40 to 1?
Yeah, a sword from the Archbishop of Gdansk. We got a letter from Franz Stiegler's daughter, or granddaughter, I can't remember.
Okay, wow. Okay, yeah. Cool.
So over the years,
that's the kind of stuff that I think is really impressive.
Yeah, I mean, for me, that is the most emotional thing as well. Either as Per said, the gifts with a personal connection, or meeting the people that are related to or in somehow were involved in what we're singing about.
And then we can add that we have received quite a lot of liters of alcohol over the years from fans.
I wish you had an exact number. I wish you could say specifically.
And usually these are local spirits or local beers or handcrafted. And I mean, we say, of course, we appreciate this, but it comes to a certain amount that it becomes basically impossible for us to enjoy it. But because it might seem very natural that, the guys are in a rock band, they party like hell and drinks hundreds of liters of beer every day. And
every day.
Even though we enjoy beers and spirits and other things, we can't drink hundreds of liters every day. So, but I think of all the gifts, the alcohol followed by books, I would say, belong to the top things.
The most common? Cool. Okay, I have a question here from Petra Holenda. Hey, I have a question. Yeah, okay, I just said that, but yeah, okay. How many Sabaton Patreons reached the goal to have meet and greet with you as me and my friend had in Prague, which was awesome, and thanks for the opportunity. Do you guys know the answer to that? Isn't that more of a question that Wieke or Joram or Maria would know? You might know. Oh, yeah, you met them. How many of those have you had a bunch of those so far?
We met a couple of people here and there. It's not that many, so I would say that it was for a few people more exclusive, I guess. And so it was more people in the United States than in Europe, for sure, who met this. Also, a lot of people can't really utilize this, I guess, because of the logistics, and simply if we are not playing in the city, I guess it doesn't work. So.
Yeah. Okay, well, let's see. Then here's a chat question as a follow-up. Blonde Miss, MISD. I hope Miss is about gifts from fans. Is there a non-top secret address where fans can send you stuff? I was wondering from the moment I heard a story behind the song Soldier of Three Armies. Yeah, of course. When you and I were talking about, let's print your address on the screen.
Yeah.
So what could go wrong?
Let's print out our home addresses here and see what happens.
But is there a non-top secret address?
Yes, and actually there is a contact mail on the website. Get in touch with there, and the people at our warehouse will answer you with an address where it's possible to send stuff. So we do get incoming post and items sent to this address, and eventually, I mean, obviously, as we explained earlier, we are a little bit spread out and we are often traveling. But we come together and then we see these things when we meet in the warehouse and stuff. So it is possible to send it there.
I wonder when the next time that the five of you guys will all be together at the same time, you know?
It's an interesting question. And
impossible to answer.
Yeah, it's very difficult to answer at this moment. But we expect that there is no concert for sure in the summer. So we will not get together for that, and it will likely take a while before we gather together.
Have you guys talked? This is me asking. Have you guys talked much, or is it just have a little break since you're off tour, basically, or?
We keep contact, of course, through similar to what we do now. With some Skype calls and messages and stuff all the time, and keeping up to date about things. So. That's what we can do at the moment.
Okay, well, I have a question then from Kimberly. Okay, as a history nerd, you can't help but notice we're living through a rather major historical event. Even though we've all seen different events depending on age, 9/11, Challenger, Chernobyl, I can't think of anything so global since the last World War. Is it strange to know that someday someone might be making media, music, art, and literature that will show all the ways the world was affected by this? And we all will be the people they are referring to.
Interesting.
Well, let me start with that. Can I start with that just first?
Sure.
Because we are specifically already making media like this. I mean, Sparty and I just today have been writing the next episode in our series on Time Goes History on pandemics, which happens to be on the second plague pandemic, the Black Death, from the 1340s. And also the climate change that actually led up to the grounds for that, and the massive societal and economic changes that it had. I mean, you can see a lot of the setup for what's happening now happening before that. And I'm sure we're not alone in already making stuff. It will be interesting to see the kind of songs and the kind of books and literature, like you asked, in 5, 10, 15, 20 years, or movies that are set during Corona. But I'm curious what you guys have to say about this.
Yeah, I mean, we are also creating documents for the future about this as we speak. I mean, obviously, as we are doing this, we are also creating something, maybe not music at the moment, but we are creating some kind of literature in a video format, though. So, and I'm sure that others will look back at this, and there has already been songs written about this. I mean, there are plenty of viral songs out about the 2020 pandemic around the world. And I mean, in Sweden, Dr. Alban managed to reach a little bit of success with that.
I really enjoyed that when I saw it. I have to admit, I enjoyed that.
With the one about the Swedish, I can't... Yeah, let me see if I can say this word. City I don't know. City epidemiologist.
Epidemiologist.
Okay. Yeah. I need a few rehearsals before I can say that word correctly. As did the Swedish news anchors as well. So.
Oh yeah, Totally. And that's what's fun. No, and it is interesting to think that, because I hadn't thought of it till now, but, 20 years from now, there will be, a love story that takes place in 2020 and its background is, COVID-19 or whatever, something like that. So that can't help but hit you about this. Here's a question, though, that's not about the future, that's actually about the past. And I'm going to ask both of you. Since Per just, I'll ask Joakim first, and then I'll ask Per. Okay. Heavy metal historian asks, if you could have a brew with anybody from history, alive or not, which I guess means dead, who would you pick and why? So Joakim first.
Wow.
I can sing the Jeopardy music if you want to think about it for a while. Do, 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 do. Oh, now we're going to be demonetized. They're going to claim it.
Well, I guess, Freddie Mercury.
Okay, cool. Great answer. Why?
I guess most of you watching this probably expected me to say somebody from, military history, but yeah, I think Freddie Mercury would have been quite interesting to meet in person. Love his
I would have expected
vocal
you
style.
to say something from music history, but not Freddie. So.
No, I mean, from a historical standpoint, though, I guess Patton would take the prize. He seems to be a character, to say the least. So
yeah, sure. What about you, Per?
Well, if there is a musician that I think that usually says a lot of interesting things and seems very good, which I unfortunately never had the chance to get to know better, that was Lemmy. And from Motorhead, I think that all the stories heard about it seem very, very, very interesting and good guy all over. So that's one thing, and it's actually sad. I mean, just briefly, a few times bumped into him and said hello, but never really got to know each other or hang out, anything like that. So this is something I'm sad about. We were scheduled to play with Motorhead, a show in Hamburg that never happened, unfortunately. So that's sad, of course.
Now the question actually. Oh, sorry.
But when it comes to a historical person, wow. I would go back to somebody, one of the pirates who obviously hid a super big treasure and tell me where it's hidden. And then I would go on a pirate treasure hunt and find it and live happily rich from a pirate treasure the rest of my life. So like that.
That's going to be my answer in future from now on. That's the one that I'm going to say. But the question did actually, interestingly enough, the question also specified it could be living persons. Are there living people that you guys have not met that you think it might be interesting to sit down for an hour and have a chat with, assuming you could all communicate in the same language?
Yes, and I mean, from a historical point of view, there are so many people who are veterans of different. We have met a couple of them who tell their stories, and it's even to read about something, which we do most of the time. It's of course very interesting, but it never become as like emotional as when you talk to the person. They tell their story, of course. Yeah. So cheers to a couple of friends in America, Scott and Sean, who shared a lot of stories with us from their times. And but I think we both remember, both me and Joakim would remember pretty well an episode where we go and we meet with a woman where we could talk absolutely perfect in Swedish, because it was a Polish woman who, after the Warsaw Uprising, and she fled to Sweden, where she got married and lived a long time, and then finally after retirement she moved back to Warsaw. And we sat down with her in Warsaw, and she was sharing her stories from the uprising. And I think that this is this was very, very emotional. We talked also with some men who were also part of the uprising, but here we couldn't speak because they were not talking English, and obviously we couldn't talk Polish. So it was a lot was lost in translation, definitely. And you could see that it was not as some of them were not as open to talk about certain things as this Anna was. Very, very open speaking about her experiences.
That's really interesting. Hey, and you reminded me of something. When I was living in New York in the early 90s, I knew a girl whose mother, the family was Jewish and they were Polish, and her mother had survived the Warsaw Ghetto as a little girl, had survived World War II. And I went to their house and the mother wasn't there. And the daughter showed me through their pantry, and in the back this was like 1991. There was still food back there, like ketchup that expired in like 1965, because you don't never ever throw anything away because you may need it, and it's really hard to think that you have to go through life experiences like this. But I'll get to another couple of questions here. Okay, Eric Sheelar asks, where is your favorite place to tour? If you have a favorite place to tour, I'm sure you have several, but
well, for me, it depends on what time and what type of tour it is. I mean, for example, doing a support tour in a new country or a new continent we haven't been to before or haven't been to very much is always nice because there's all this time to discover, well, sightseeing or whatever it might be. So it depends, really. I mean, are we talking about what we do off the stage? That could be one place. It could be a beautiful place or an interesting place. Are we talking about the show itself? It's going to be totally different because then we'd like a crazy crowd. And there are a few hotspots around the globe for crazy crowds, for sure.
Yeah.
I think, though, one of the strongest memories I have, I mean, there are so many good places around the planet, but one of the strongest memories for me, or the two that stand out, are going to be Bulgaria and Argentina, I think.
Okay, wow. And why those? I mean, that's not something that instantly leaps to my mind when I think, oh, I wonder if I could guess their favorite places to tour. Why those two?
Simply because they're fucking crazy.
Okay, so. No, that's cool. Yeah, of course, a fucking crazy place should be the best place to tour, right?
Yep. I mean, crazy crowds like that. I can, still remember both. At least the first time we played Argentina and the first time we played Bulgaria. Both of them were, really, what the fuck is happening? What are these guys doing? Experiences for me, and yeah. I mean, obviously, these are not the only places we like to tour. We pretty much like to tour almost anywhere.
That makes sense. Yeah. Perry, you have anything to add for that?
I always know the feeling of everybody when we have a tour or a show booked in Japan that everybody's looking forward to it. I think that it's, I mean, for anybody who has visited Japan, I think they know the feeling that it's a very reliable country where you have a very, very the population, the average people are damn good. So when it comes to just being there and being everybody in the whole band feels very, very good. So and how things work out and stuff. So Japan is very high, I would say, for everybody in the band when it comes to visiting for that. On the other hand, for the actual concert, I mean, Japanese people are pretty loud, but they're also damn silent. So it's kind of best of two worlds because they are absolutely silent between the songs. They don't cheer. There's no Noch ein Bier. There's no Sabaton. It's silent. They applaud when we finish a song. They scream when we tell them to scream. But when we don't say anything, they are silent. So that's just how they are. So for good and bad, they are that. But again, I agree with Joakim and like Bulgaria, Argentina, and they are absolutely amazing countries when it comes to the audience. When it comes to like a place to tour, I really like the convenience of touring in the United States now. In the beginning, it was damn difficult for us because of the infrastructure in the United States is not built for a tiny band who is supporting other bands. It was difficult, and it was very hard. But once you step up, and I think that we are on a funny level in America, playing in my opinion, the best types of venues where you can actually feel everybody in the whole venue, not the really big arenas, but the packed theaters and stuff. This is
cool.
awesome, and it also the way of touring in America when it's not when you are not on the stage and in the backstage, it's quite nice. So I enjoy this, and but of course, when it comes to delivering a show, it was the whole thing that started the thing is what we do when we do Europe. We give everybody the biggest show possible, and we have the most things available to us, and it's the biggest arenas and stuff. So that, of course.
Okay. Now we're starting to get to the end on time, but I'm going to ask you a bit more here. Marie Lampikowski asks, this is a political question. Since the political atmosphere, for example, in Europe, has been changing and the far-right political movements have gained some more foothold, so has anti-Semitism and anti-immigrant polemics, etc. Does this reflect on the song topic suggestions you receive, like uncomfortable suggestions maybe, and the general feedback from fans and media?
I can say that, sure, there are always current events will affect the people who send in suggestions to us. So this, however, it's not something that we feel that we want to touch, because it's clearly from the sender's point of view, it's clearly directly political.
Yeah.
So it's for us, it goes to the archive pretty quickly when it comes to, please write about this because it's happening right now and it's horrible. Because after all, we do write about historical events, and when it's currently happening, it's not so historical. And so we avoid it. But it does affect the people that we meet. It does affect the kind of questions we get. I mean, it's not a secret that media wants to, everybody who is interested in politics wants to use whatever means they got to get their message through. And for sure, any journalist, from what kind of angle they come from, would love to find an ally or an enemy in us. So they would, of course, try to, if they are not a strictly heavy metal journalist, but if they are something else, they might try to find an angle to either see us as an ally or as an enemy, and use it for their own political things. Because there is a lot of people in this world, especially if you look outside the specialized, for example, heavy metal media and stuff like that. You will find a lot of journalists. They do it because they have ideals, politics, and they see media as a way of getting their will through, which obviously they are absolutely right with. But we do not want to be seen and used and abused for people's personal political viewpoints.
Now, when you're doing those, when you do an interview thing, people don't realize that you'll sit there for 4 hours and do a bunch of interviews all at once. When people start, maybe trying to, instead of asking you about music or your songs, when people start trying to ask you about modern politics and forcing you to maybe venture an opinion, how do you shut them down? Or do you shut them down?
Most times it's easy to say that we are controversial enough as it is without commenting on political or religious issues. So I mean, no matter where we go, what we do, people are always gonna try, as Pat explained earlier, use us as a springboard, or for in one way or another, where to reinforce their own opinions, or use us as an antagonist, even though we're only the ones delivering the message, because that's what we are. We're storytellers. We're not
that's the thing. That's your line, and I think that's a great line. We're storytellers. We're not politicians. We're not, Okay, I've got I'm being told to ask first this and then last question. So we'll do first this, which is actually a double question, but okay. Wander18 asks, what was the most challenging song to do research on? And I know you guys get a lot of tips from your fans. I wonder which story it was that was the most difficult to follow up on. I suppose that might be the same thing. You get an idea, and what was the hardest one to find the actual story for?
We had troubles. I remember Resistant Bite was tricky. I remember this because we couldn't really find any information in English. This one was one of the more tricky ones. But then it's
Same
also
with Smoking Snakes, actually.
I was going to suggest Smoking Snakes. Yeah. Okay. So.
That's true. And there are also some stories where we find information, but not the right information we need to write. And this is something, because for some songs, we just need the sparks and we can write the full thing. But sometimes, even if we have tons of things to write about, it can be really difficult to actually get it down to how is this? I mean, after all, what is some of our absolutely most difficult songs we have ever taken on to write? I'd say Lost Battalion is one of them.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
It took ages. I don't know, the amount of syllables, nothing lined up. And as Per said, I mean, when it comes to the research side of things, there are two options we really, really don't want. We've been in there a couple of times. And the one option is very little material, a very unknown story from a non-English or Scandinavian-speaking country, which means it's really hard for us to get translations or even find the right stuff. Or the other thing would be something that is so huge, big, and famous that you got an army of material to go through to find the angle or the interesting story the way we want to tell it, you know? Or
Victoria.
Yeah, it could be that.
Yeah.
It could be Stalingrad. I mean, I remember reading the big Anthony Beaver book and, all of that, watching movies, going through everything I could. And I ended up with nothing because there's so much information, I actually didn't even know where to start. But then I found a Russian soldier's diary, a translation of a Russian soldier's diary, only a couple of pages online. And that became sort of the basis or the formula of how I would tell the story, in that song. And
that's really cool. Yeah.
However, it couldn't have been. I probably couldn't have done that without having read and seen all the other stuff. And here is somebody commenting. Michael Delgado, because he's commenting on exactly this. Why there is no Pearl Harbor? Yeah, this is exactly that kind of topic. How much material is there about Pearl Harbor, and how difficult is it to select which one you do a song about?
Which story? Which one of the many?
Yeah,
we should ask Hannes to make it.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, the Desert War one. It's the best beginning when he sings that Pearl Harbor, Desert War. That would light a fire under a few people if you guys did that.
Oh yeah.
Okay, well, I have a last question for this particular session. It says from a very loyal fan, from Becky, either Walker, Waltzer, or Walcher. Becky, I'm sorry if I can't pronounce your last name correctly. What is the best part about touring, and what is the hardest part about touring?
Joakim first.
Sure.
Well, sometimes the hardest and the best thing are the same, actually, when touring. Because I think heavy metal touring is... this is not unique for Sabaton. I guess most musicians or touring people who have similar jobs are the same. I mean, when you're having fun on tour, it's like some of the best fun you could ever have. I mean, being on stage in front of thousands of people, singing along, clapping along. It's hard to beat that. However, even that can be really bad being on stage. I mean, when you're having, 42 degrees centigrade fever, you're popping pills and trying to make sure your voice is barely working, and you're trying to make sure nobody notices, because obviously canceling a show is not an option if it can be done, because we got so many people who's got train tickets, flights, hotels, everything. So if we can do the show, we will do it. But in general, I would say favorite thing about touring for me is seeing the world. I really love that. And thing I don't like is really needing to take a shit or a dump in the morning and being on a tour bus.
Wow, that's yeah. We're gonna put that on your gravestone one day.
Yes.
Your parents will be so proud. Per, how about you?
They're not gonna see it, hopefully.
Yeah, I mean, I like most of the stuff on tour. I like I like putting together everything, seeing how the crew get along, how everybody's pushing everything to make the absolutely most in every situation. I do enjoy when things are a little bit cramped and tough, and we face a situation, and you see really how so many good people. I mean, I wouldn't want to say so much bad about it, but when it comes to the 20 years touring of Sabaton, in the beginning, we were the crew members that we had with us on tour. They were working for free beers and free food. And these days they are paid top money because of the quality and the experience of the people that we are traveling with. That's why we now have a super experienced team from all over the world with us. And what happens with this, when something goes wrong and you see all these experienced, very talented people get together to solve a situation, it's very impressive to watch. And it's also great to see them enjoy when they feel. So they are a big part of it, and to put together the show and to see the fans' reactions when we stand on the stage and feel that is, I love that. And then the bad thing about touring is when we can't deliver, when we get sick, which everybody gets. The only difference between us and most other people in the world is that we can't call in the day. We are sick, and then we are sick, and then we have to go to work anyway. Whatever circumstances, whatever shit we got, we have to play the show, and we have to smile, and we have to pretend that there's nothing, because it's not an ideal way of standing on stage and saying, sorry guys, today I feel like shit, so you're not gonna get the best show. No, it's not the way we do it. We go on stage and just give everything. And actually, once you go onto the stage, and even if the morning was absolutely bad and the whole day was bad, usually you find energy for those 1.5 hours to really do something. Afterwards, you're exhausted. You're so bad, and you feel a little bit horrible as well, because you felt that you didn't give 100% to the audience. You gave 100%. We always do, but you feel that you are like only operating at lower level. Right. And this is bad, because it is part of our hearts and stuff that we always want to give the best show every night. And if physics do not allow us to give 100%, of course we feel bad about it. And this is the worst and hardest part of it, I would say. So I think that these days it's also easy to stay in touch with people, and convenience of touring allow us. It's actually not that inconvenient. A lot of people ask, how can you live on a tour bus and stuff? But they are quite comfortable, and we sleep very well. Mm-hmm. And if you ask any touring musician, I think that they prefer to tour in tour buses over airplanes, or sleeping in hotels and going by vans or whatever. So it's
nightliners are okay. I like nightliners. I'm with you. So. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. Sorry.
No. So that part of touring is quite nice as well. But being sick is damn horrible wherever you are. But being on tour, it's
Okay. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we've come to the end of this first one of our Sabaton History Patreon live streams, but there will be more over the summer. Will be the next one. We'll let you guys know as soon as we know when the next one is, and I hope all of you out there remain safe. And if you happen to get this, well, sorry, man, because it's no fun, but you know how to avoid it. Gloves, masks. You go jogging in your glove and mask. Well, you guys say goodbye, and then I'll say a final goodbye, okay?
All right.
Thank you very much, everyone, for the live stream. Hopefully, we can do this again soon. And yeah.
Yeah, and it's glad to see everybody here. A lot of people following, a lot of good questions, and a lot of good cheers up and stuff. Looks great. Hopefully, as Joakim said, we can do this again very soon, and hope to see everybody tune in again.
Yeah, so from Moscow, Norway, and Bavaria, it is goodbye from Sabaton history. See you next time.